Hello, everyone. I hope your semester started off well. I've been dealing with a leak at my house, so I had people in yesterday to take out sheetrock and baseboards and flooring, and so I'm waiting for them to come restore all of that. So I hope things are going well with you and you're making it okay. I wanted to update and talk a little bit about a few things in the course. Hopefully, you are finding stuff. Here's what you should see when you come to the class, the syllabus, and if you haven't figured it out yet, the schedule is where you need to click, and you'll get the all of the information about the assignments, what to do, etc., etc. Most of them will turn in the discussion forum, except this first one, we're doing a blog. So there were a couple of questions about that, and I actually needed to do something on my end, which I think I have done now. So when you go to the blogs, and then you can click on, I called it vocabulary blogs. This is for the what the work you have to, the first work that you have to do, lesson one under module one. So you would click on that, and then you can see here, create blog entry. And so that's where you would make that happen. So hopefully that's good and cleared up now. But if you have questions, post those. Again, in terms of questions, I posted here in the discussion forum. This is where we will post most of your work. But for the first one about the blog, I put a post here so that you could ask questions, which several of you did, and I appreciate that. That works really well. So on any lesson that we're doing, so let's say module 1, lesson 2, you don't have to wait until you're ready to create a thread to turn in what you've done for the assignment. You can create a thread and ask questions. So you should ask questions here in the discussion forum. That way everybody sees what you're asking. They can benefit from your questions, as opposed to if you email me. Emails I'm not going to get to probably in time. It takes me longer to get through and go through my emails. This technically is our classroom, so this is like if we were in a class, we were sitting all together, you would ask questions. So think of this space as where we get together and ask questions. So you can actually look at module 1. You can see some people posted, and these are just questions. So thank you to you guys that posted some good questions. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about, let's go ahead and look at the schedule if you haven't looked at it yet. And you can see here, intro info, read that. And then you get to the modules. So this first module is what is due in the blog. And I'm not going to talk specifically about that, but if you have questions, post those in the discussion forum. I'll be glad to talk more about that. But looking ahead, I wanted to talk just a minute about lesson 2, applying terms and concepts. Now, for lesson 1 and lesson 2, we are looking at, back here on lesson 1, the reading, one of the readings. Well, let me say this real quick. One of the readings for lesson 1 is the introduction in the textbook that you're supposed to buy for the course, Defining Visual Rhetoric. If for some reason you can't get the book in time to turn it in by the due date that I have listed, just do it as soon as you can get your book. It's not a problem if you have to turn it in after the due date. So, I know it takes a while sometimes for books to come. So, and it's just the introduction for this first lesson. So it's not a lot. But the main thing that you're looking at is this introduction chapter in this online resource. The title of it is Defining Visual Rhetorics. And then you can click on that and get to the actual book. And when you get here, you don't have to read the preface. You can. Preface always has good info. You don't have to read the acknowledgments unless you want to, but start with the introduction. And I'm not expecting you to read and understand all of this, but just read it as an introduction to ways to think about visual rhetoric. because we're going to talk about it many different ways as we go through the course. Some you may want to focus on more than others. Now, when you get down here where it talks about Thomas Franklin's photograph, you can see here that the photograph isn't showing up. I'm not sure why. You know, these online things that are free, you run into that kind of stuff. But you can see here back on the schedule, I tell you here, that image may not show, but you can go to this link. And this is really good and interesting info for you to look at as well. This is actually an article about Thomas Franklin, who actually shot the photo that's not in there. And there's actually a little video thing you can watch. I'd recommend, you know, you don't have to, but just read through the article here. It's very interesting. Because one of the things we think about when we think about visual rhetoric is the history. What, you know, who made the image? You know, here we're talking about photos, but images are everywhere. Visual rhetoric is everywhere. But you know, who is the person who created the image? You know, where is it housed? Where is it being shown? Does it relate to other events? Does it relate to other images? Etc., etc. So you always want to have that background information. This is the actual photo. I think this is where it was made into a stamp, and this is the guy who took the photo. But if you go down a little bit farther, and it will show you here, this is the actual image, and you may have very well seen this because, you know, it's a very well-known iconic image related to 911, which may have happened before many of you were born. But this is the actual image they're referring to when you go back to the chapter that I wanted you to read right here. So, okay, so for the assignment, assignment in lesson 2, so let's go back to lesson 2. In lesson 2, I'm going to ask you to talk about an image that you're going to find related to 911 and use the same analysis that they do in the chapter. Hang on, I went too far. Okay, it says right here, find another image related to 911, give the information about it, and look at the 4 paragraphs following the photo right here in step 2. So if you go back over here, just to help you understand what I'm talking about, this is where the photo would be, and then you would start here and count with the paragraphs. So this would be the first paragraph. It says, one of the ways we understand is through its reference to other images. Let's see, go down here. Talks a little about where we first saw the photo. And this would be stuff that you'd have to look up and find. Does it resemble another famous photo? They talk here about the Marines raising the flag at the Iwo Jima. You may be familiar with that. Let's see, it was distributed through newspapers and magazines, so you can talk about, you know, where did the image come from? How has it been distributed? Anything maybe you know about the person who took the image? Now, I wanted to give you an example and kind of talk through, because what I want you to do is find an image and talk about your image similar to how they're doing in the chapter. I found this image, which just kind of struck me, this one right here. And it's by Lee Miller, and it's titled SS Garden Canal, Dachau, which is one of the internment, one of the camps, one of the Holocaust camps in Germany. Some of the work I do in visual rhetoric, I focus on the concentration camps as a space where I do actual visual analysis, and I look at how victimization is being portrayed. And you can see here, this is an SS guard, which usually that's the German guards, and we would relate that to, the bad people. The Germans were the ones who were creating and doing all the horrible events. My research focuses on victimization. So we can look at this SS guard in the canal. And I looked up about this picture. I did some research. I searched on Google to see what I could find. Some people ask, is it actually an SS guard? They said the insignia is not there on the jacket. Some people said, well, he probably did have a family. We should think about that when we're interpreting the image. Some people said he probably wasn't an SS guard, but another kind of military person who worked there. He could have very well been shot by the Jews after the concentration camp was liberated. So I went and searched to see, what's the discussion about this image. And then as we go further into the course, you'll see, the book has some very specific ways to analyze any image. And so that can be used here as well. I mean, you can see here the dark, black and white, the shadows, the lines. Over here we've got some plants in contrast to the image, a little bit of light. And I'm not going to, when this activity here, you don't focus as much on that, but those are some of the things we'll look at. And you can see here, this is in an archive in England. Now, when you talk about your image, so if I pick this image and I was going to analyze it the way I'm asking you guys to do, then I would give this information to tell where this image came from. It's actually from the name of the website. So I wouldn't just give the URL. If I gave you just the URL, that really wouldn't tell you anything. But it's this Artblot website, and you can see on this Artblot website, it's a section where they are talking about the author, and if you can find anything about the author of the image that you're looking at, and this is Lee Miller. If you go back up to the top, you can see Artblot, Art and Cultural Memory Archive. I'd want to put that in my discussion to let readers know where this information came from. And they're talking about an exhibition that was in Vienna, and it was by Lee Miller. And when I say to give the source of your information, I'm not looking for you to do MLA or APA or any of that stuff. I just want you to list the information so that it makes sense to the readers, so that we know where the information came from. And you can see here, this is the person who wrote this. This is a blog, basically. Okay, now if we go back down, I just wanted to show you a little bit. They talk about Lee Miller and her work. And you can see here, she's considered an 20th century artist. Photographs, she mainly photographed. Traveling portraiture and war correspondence. So this picture comes from her work during the war. And then you can see here she considers herself a surrealist photographer in Paris. She worked with Man Ray. She would draw back the curtain on a reality of paradoxes, making them visible to the viewer. The surrealist viewpoint on the streets of Paris. Absurdity. So this gives you a little bit about the kind of work that she did. And then you go down and they talk, she was just a handful of female photojournalists, and she actually went on, was part of the group that studied the results of the Second World War, at the things that she photographed. She's seen posing nude in Hitler's bathtub. You can see that picture down here. So I guess this is Hitler's bathtub. That's just interesting. But this is the picture I was focusing on. So you can see there, I did similar to what in this first paragraph, where they talk about, where did it come from? How was it distributed? Who is the person that created it? Okay, so the title, they talk here about the title. And actually, one of the sources that I found where they were talking about this portrait, you can see, or this picture, it says SS Guard. And in one of the discussions I found, like I said, some people were saying, well, is this actually an SS Guard? But in this paragraph, they talk about the title of the image. How does that affect it? Is there any information to talk about with that? And then they talk about, the symbolism of what those words or those terms mean. Okay, and then here, the third paragraph, impact. What kind of an impact? And then if you look at this, what is the impact? Like I said, with some people, it evoked feelings of emotion toward this German military person, in spite of the fact that they were on the side that we considered, the enemies, the ones who created the atrocities. But then it also definitely is representative of all the horrible things we think about when we think about concentration camps. And then the simple composition of the image. So here is where you would say, what is in the image? They talk here about, the flag, the firemen, what do they represent? I see they talk about icon. They talk about synodoche. And I'll show you here, synodoche. It's where a part is meant to represent the whole, as in Cleveland won by 6 runs, meaning Cleveland's baseball team. So here, the idea is the idea is that the firemen with the flag that represents the United States, and what the United States stands for. How we fight for freedom, what the flag stands for. Now, when you do this, so it's these 4 paragraphs. So I'm not expecting you to be expert at this. Just do the best that you can. Use this as your model. Talk about what's in your picture if you can. Put the actual picture in your you can do a Word doc. And like I said, tell where it comes from. So give it, if you can't put one in there, describe what it is you're talking about, so that you give the reader some kind of basic information so that we understand what you're talking about. So anyway, I'll stop there. So the video here is not too long, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about that for the second lesson that's coming up. And here again, when you go to the when you're in Blackboard, go under the discussion forum. And as you have more questions about that lesson, that's lesson 2, just go here, create a thread, ask your questions. And then that way I can answer your questions. If I need to, I'll make another video, or I'll post more info for you to help you out with that. So anyway, hopefully you're picking up some ways to think about visual rhetoric, and let me know what questions you have.